You were very supportive of that idea. And over the past 2 years, Recovery Rustic has been working to try to essentially organize a recovery community, which really helps to reduce substance use disorder in the community. So we have a document that we'd like to distribute to council members. We have been exploring a house on Hammond Street in Caribou. It's the former Hope and Justice House that was a house for people who are dealing with domestic violence for a long time. They vacated that property a couple of years ago and made it obvious or clear to us that if we were interested in purchasing that property to use as a sober, the reason we use recovery house is because sober house is primarily regarding alcohol, and recovery includes both alcohol and other drug abuse. So we are very close to being able to get the financing to open that property. That will be our next step. We now have a recovery center in Caribou that's been very successful. And the next step in that process of creating a recovery community is a recovery house. This is a house where it will be alcohol and drug-free living for people who are in recovery. There won't be people going there who are using. These will be people that have been in recovery. We will be working with medication-assisted therapy, which has been proven with a lot of evidence to suggest that people using medication-assisted therapy for opiate addiction do much better than those who don't. But it will be both for alcohol and for other drug use. Recovery Rustic has been ongoing now for 3 years. It is a grassroots organization where many people have been meeting every Wednesday night at 6:30 over the past 3 years to build this recovery community. And there is a great need for recovery living. Sean Gillen, the county sheriff, I've met with him on 2 different occasions. He is very supportive of this concept, as is our own chief of police, Mike Gahagan. So why I'm here tonight is this is a residential property where people, like all other residents, live and work, and we're hoping that the council will be supportive of us having the ability to open another sober or recovery house in Caribou. This one will be for men. We also hope to open one for women. We're looking at different property for that. But, you know, I wanted to provide the city with an update of what we're doing. I'm very impressed with the work of the Recovery Heuristic Program, that they have stuck with this effort for 3 years, and many more of them probably could have been with me tonight. I do have Mark Shea, who is helping us sort of managing this project as we go forward. Eric Lamoureux, who did actually open a sober house, the first one in Caribou. We feel now with the success of Recovery Heuristic and the support of the Center for Advancement of Rural Living, we believe we can really make this property go. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And what I'm looking for is just, in order to get this property financed, we have to at least have a statement from the city council that said that you have no objection. That's what I'm hoping to get at some point. And if you require more information, we're happy to provide that to you. But I can tell you, there are many sober houses or recovery houses available in central and southern Maine, and there's not a single one in Aroostook County. So based on the issue that we have with substance use disorder, this is something that's badly needed. In talking with Sean Gillen, our county jail, which was originally built for 60 people, now has 128 people in it. He said when he first started law enforcement, if there was one woman in the county jail, that would be a lot. Today there were 28. There were, when I talked to him, 28 women in the county jail. So there's a need for both men and women, and we hope to address both in the months ahead. So we have a document we can provide to you, and if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions from council at this time?
Would this require a zoning change?
We don't believe so, because it's a residential property. There will be no business conducted there. There'll be no services conducted there. It's simply a place where people will live. By living there, they have to agree to certain accountabilities that they have to accept when they go into that recovery living environment. But other than that, it's simply residential living.
Ken, what zone does the house currently sit in, R1 or R2?
I believe it's an R2.
It's an R2.
Group homes are.
Are acceptable on R2. Now, will you guys be handing out the medication to the people that are recovering?
Each house will have their own manager. If we open a woman's house, obviously it'd be a woman manager. There'll be a person in long-term recovery who will be in that management position. And they will be offered a subsidy to live there and a small stipend to be the manager of the property. And Eric, I'm not sure. I think there would how the medication-assisted therapy actually works.
They would administer their own medication under supervision.
Okay, so it would be...
They would be taking their own medication. There'd be no medication compliance that they have to do.
Yeah.
However, the manager would watch
Yeah.
them take their medication, so they're taking it appropriately.
But they're
Then-
taking it by themselves, because
Right.
that could be considered a service.
Right, true. Yeah, good point.
The only thing in traditionally in sober living that they would do with the medication is they would keep it locked for them, so their medication didn't get stolen or lost. If there was someone living in the house that wasn't on the medication, it could sometimes be triggering for them to want to take that medication. So the manager would lock the medication, and usually the dosages are once a day. They do it in the morning. They watch them take their dose. They put the stuff away, and it's behind locking doors. So it's actually helpful for them. It also helps them, if they are on MAT medication, be responsible to take their medication correctly.
Yeah.
So there isn't that chance of the other thing. The zoning issue, and I'll address that too. The zoning issue is always the big thing when it comes to recovery houses. Is and this is just me being honest. Throughout the state, it's always been not necessarily that the community doesn't want the recovery houses. It's the zoning issues that are the problem. My house that I opened in 2017 was in a C1, I believe. It was on Bennett Drive, so it was in a commercial zoning. Not a lot to really do there because I was running an LLC out of it, so it was a business, you know. This case, where it's a 501c3, it's more of a residential house, follows a little more under the group home activity. It is a group, but they are protected under ADA laws. So American Disabilities Act follows under alcoholism and addiction, so they have the right to live in those kinds of places together as a single-family dwelling, is what they call it. So that's always usually the very big issue. I think Bill is here today just to kind of say, hey, this is what we're doing. We hope you guys want it too, and then it'll go from there. I don't necessarily think you'll have to change any zonings to meet that need. I think they've done really well at trying to make sure that they are in the right zones, the houses that they're looking at, so they don't have to make it an LLC, a for-profit organization. They can keep it in their 501c3 organization, so it's not a big money-making thing, and providing a solid service to people that need it.
In your literature that you're going to pass out, is there a timeline that you have penciled in?
We're hoping to close on the loan for the property October 1st and to have the property open for residents November 1st. That's kind of a rough timeline that we're going by. Could be a little bit delayed, but the finance people here today, they looked at the property. They were very pleased with the price that we've negotiated with Hope and Justice. They've been very flexible. There's some minor renovation that has to be done. The financing will provide that as well. So,
Would you mind if we put you on the agenda for the next council meeting, which is in 4 weeks, and after we'll get this information, but
Sure.
any additional information
Sure.
before that meeting, could you please give it to Dennis?
sure.
And he will give it to us so that we can have a more
Comprehensive view of the whole thing, yeah.
and more time.
Yeah. All right.
If
Thank
you
you.
don't mind.
No, that's fine. Sure.
What would you like me to do with these?
city clerk, and she'll pass them around.
Thank
very
you.
much, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Yeah.
My name is Bruce Hagelstein, a resident of Caribou, and I want to talk about River Road. I don't know what's going on, but reading the article in the Aroostook Republican dated July 3rd, a couple of things that were a little disturbing to me is, number one, why do we have to do 12 more borings when we've already done borings on it? We know the situation there. The land's moving, pure and simple. We let it go a year to see what would happen after this past winter and spring. Guess what? It moved. It's pretty tough if you think you're going to control Mother Nature. She's always going to have an upper hand on you. So my thought is this doing more borings to figure out more. I'm concerned about that. We've already spent, from looking at the notes, $371,777 on addressing things on River Road, buying properties, so forth. But nothing has been done to the road yet. Now, my concern is also, if you do those borings and the engineering firm comes back with basically the same thing that we already know, which I think we do know, that that's what is going to happen. We learned this from bids for the new school. Construction costs are not getting any cheaper. And I think the cost is going to be through the roof for what you're going to get. And it isn't going to solve the problem. It's still going to have movement. My solution to this is, let's cut to the chase. Let's not kick the can down the road. Let's make a decision on what to do. And my recommendation is put in permanent barriers on both sides, rename the roads, East River Road, West River Road, with dead-end signs. Be done, and let's move on. Because we can't keep going this way. We've already spent a bunch of money. The council is worried about taxes and cutting costs and so forth. Let's be smart about this and use some common sense. We are, in my opinion, we already have enough information from the engineers on the condition of that area of the road. It's unstable. It's moved twice. And they also said if they do the borings, you're not going to have the results, the total results of that for another year. So that's 2 years out. Let's put this thing to bed and let's move on. Because it's not going to get any better. That's all I've got. And I wish you would take that under consideration. It'd be a lot cheaper in the long run, and I think everybody would be happy.
Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public? Hearing none, we'll close the public part of the meeting. Item number 4, minutes. 4A, council minutes held June 10th, 2019. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to accept.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the council minutes held June 10th, 2019. Any additions, corrections, subtractions? Hearing,
I was, yes.
oh, I see. Let's see. Anybody had anything to do with the minutes?
I just want to know if I should vote or not.
We've heard that you
Yes,
have a
okay.
right to vote.
Oh, sure.
If you will. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. 4B, council minutes held June 24th. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to accept.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the council minutes held June 24th. Any additions, corrections, Subtractions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5, the financials, June. Dennis.
Probably want to just give a synopsis of things. So your finances are in the packet. Total expenses for June was $694,000 roughly. Revenues were $599,000. Cash balance as of June 30th was about $920,000. Excise tax for the month was $136,000. Year to date, we're at $795,000, about $22,000 more than 2018. Anybody have any questions?
Says on. Oh, anybody have any questions? Okay, it says the fund balance at the end of June, 488,000.
Yeah, for the municipal government side, that's not including snowmobile,
Right,
housing. Yep,
money that we use to operate on.
yep.
Okay. We only used 84,000 this past month. I'm talking about the month of June now.
Right.
We only used 84,000. Is some tax money starting to come in, or?
Yeah, we actually have prepayments that people are on with the tax club. We've received $308,000 through the end of June.
Got it.
That's on real estate. Also, personal property tax is at about $12,000.
Do you have any way of knowing how much tax money will come in July?
I mean, if you divided that by 6, you're talking about $50,000 a month.
Okay. Okay. I didn't get that last part, but I'll accept it.
Well,
I-
300, and if you divide that by 6 months, it's about 50,000 a month. So
Oh,
you could say July would be around $50,000.
Oh, I thought all 350 came in the month of June.
No. That was through January through June.
Oh, I got it. I misunderstood.
Year to date, yep.
Okay, got it. Okay. Little slow. It was hot this weekend. Any other questions? Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to accept.
Moving second to accept the financials ending in June, for the month of June. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item number 6, bid openings, awards, and appointments. 2019 tax acquired property bids. Dennis.
Hand this one to our finance director again. There are 2 parts to this in the council packet on page. Maybe I'll take the first part, which is that one of the pieces of property that we have on our tax acquired list is 32 Fenderson Street. The adjacent property owner, Mr. and Mrs. Gehring, they've expressed an interest in acquiring that property from the city. And the indication is they would like to have the house torn down and be able to expand their property there, which makes sense. They are very concerned about the cost of tearing the home down. They've been getting bids, and it's anywhere from $16,000 to $25,000 to do that. We have the home slated for demolition through the blight removal program that we have as a city. It's one of those homes we're probably not going to get to this year because of the funding that we have. And so it would probably be in the springtime if we were to get to it with our crews as far as tearing it down and hauling the materials off. At this point, they've indicated that they're willing to enter into an agreement with the city that perhaps in the springtime they would take ownership of the property and maybe work something out with the city, that the city would still go through the process, and we would tear the house down, and then they would take ownership of it. Their concern is they don't want the house to come down and then have the city put it out to bid and they not be able to add it to their property. And so it's really I guess a question for the city council. We had an agreement with the previous owner. Well, you may recall a couple of years ago we had an agreement with the property owner that we said if you can have it and you have to tear it down within so many months. Well, that never took place, and the city took the property back. And so the Garings have said they may be interested in a very similar agreement, but they're not ready to move on the property right now because they don't want the liability through the winter time. It's more looking long term. And so it's just at this point, it really is a matter of bringing it to the council's attention. We don't have anything really on the agenda for you to take action on tonight. There's no agreement. But if you want to give us some direction on how you might like to proceed with the Garings, we can continue to work with them on that. And then Carl can handle the second part of this.
So you folks approved a bid list, I think a month and a half ago. We accepted bids through July 2nd and got 2 bids, one on map 21, lot 15, section B, which is 678 Madawaska Road. Minimum bid was $8,500, and the bid came in higher than that. I'm sorry, the bid was $8,500. Minimum bid was $8,475, so it did meet minimum bid. So I recommend that we sell that to Ray Salch. Property 27, map 37, lot 38, section G, 8 Preston Drive. Minimum bid was $26,775. Got a bid for $32,650. Also recommend that being sold to Mr. Corvo.
Any questions on any of these properties to Carl or Dennis? Thank you, Carl. Appreciate it. Well, Chair will entertain a motion on property. Number 20? Tax.
Move to accept the bid.
Second.
Moving second to accept the bid of $8,500 for property number 20. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Passes. Chair will entertain a motion on property number 27.
Move to accept the bid.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the property number 27, a bid of $32,650. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Is that it for the...
Unless there's any comments you want to provide on the Garing discussion.
Does anybody else want that property?
Not that we've had any interest expressed.
I've just heard that people want the house torn down. Yeah. From several people that look.
We had some complaints or some concerns expressed about some transient people in the building, and Gary was quick to go out and put some extra plywood up across the openings, and so we've secured the building more. But we believe it'll last through the winter, or at least not in any serious hazard through the winter at this point. So.
Okay.
Is there a third owner for the property just to the right?
There is. This piece of triangle there that looks like it has a driveway that goes to the house, that is owned by a different property owner.
Yep.
He was the one that promised to tear the house down and didn't do it. And so we took the house property back.
Dave?
I didn't understand, Nicole. Did you say other people would want to bid once the house is gone?
No, I have just had people mention that they want the house gone. It was originally supposed to be, and it's an eyesore to the area.
My only question is, when the house is gone and it becomes more desirable, would somebody else want it? So,
Okay. We'll see.
Okay.
If the Gearings wanted to take the property right now for the minimum bid, we would sell it to them.
Yes.
No.
The minimum bid doesn't have a discount for the tearing down of the house.
Well,
That's
but it's still available.
Right.
And we would have nothing to lose to give them, say, okay, we'll give you a year to tear it down.
Right.
If they so decide, something like that. Okay. But that would all come back to the council
Yes.
for discussion. Okay.
Right.
Number 7, new business, no, public hearing, there is no public hearing. Number 8, new business. Discussion and possible action regarding renewal of a liquor license for Country Farms Market LLC at 31 Herschel Street. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to renew?
second.
Moved and seconded to renew the liquor license for Country Farms Market LLC. Anything we should know?
It's just rental property on Herschel Street where you can rent and have an event.
Police departments had no issues?
No, police, fire, or, police, health officer, and code.
Everything, okay? Any more comments? If not, all those in favor? Motion carries. 8B, discussion possible action regarding the renewal of a liquor license for Caribou Bowlodrome and Sports Inn at 97 Bennett Drive.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to to renew the liquor license for the Caribou Bowlodrome and Sports Inn. Once again, any issues?
Nope.
Any problems?
It wouldn't come in front of you if there were.
It won't?
I would have them resolved before I brought it to you.
Good idea. Thank you very much. Any discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. 8C, discussion and possible action regarding tax anticipation note, line of credit for $750,000. Dennis.
And that one off to the finance director again there.
As I stated earlier, our cash flow position at the end of June was $920,000. Right now, we're at about $400,000. It takes us about $884,000 for a month operating, so we are about only a half a month worth of cash flow. So this would be for emergencies only, and it's like a sweep account or an overdraft on your personal account. This is how it operates. If a check needs to clear and there's no money there, the line of credit goes into effect. Once the deposit's made on that line of credit, then interest is no longer charged. Right now, they're giving it to us for 12 months at 2.59% annual interest. I just feel we need this and for bills to be paid. Any questions?
Question, comments? Carl, you got any idea when the last time the city of Caribou had to borrow money to operate?
We actually had this in place in 2017 because the state hadn't adopted their budget yet. So we've had it in the past in place in case something were to happen. That was 2 years ago. We never did access it. As you can see on the screen, we're about in between. 17 was the lower number, 18 is the blue number. So that's as of the beginning of July. Right now, we would probably be below the 2017 line at 400,000. I think that was like 550,000 as low as we got in 2017. So we're already below the 2017 mark.
Okay. Any other questions for Carl? Chair will entertain a motion.
I move to authorize setting up a line of credit of up to $750,000.
Chair will entertain a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to, I guess, authorize a line of credit for $750,000 and use it if necessary. Any other questions or comments?
Because you don't pay interest, right? unless
No, it's
you-
only if we use it.
Okay.
So if we use it for 2 days, we only pay interest for 2 days. No, there's no fees, no fees associated with it or anything.
And just assuming, obviously, at this time that we've kind of limited to necessary expenses and not, frivolous things, I guess.
Yeah, I've been monitoring cash flow pretty hard since the middle of May.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? This is a philosophical issue with me, Carl, Dennis. And I remember Steve Buck coming up here, and the most impressive thing he was left over from when Terry St. Peter and that council back in those days created the CIP, and we had enough money put away to take care of our infrastructure, and we would use that money to run the city until the next. And he was very impressed by that. Very few. A lot of cities do this very thing. Communities do this very thing. But he was real impressed with it. And I feel like over the last 5 or 6 years, we've let our infrastructure deteriorate so that we're not putting money in there. And this is the consequence. We don't have this money to borrow anymore. And we're not keeping up with the needs. And so that's why I voted against it, because it's a philosophy thing. But we're in a bind. And I guess I'd like the council.
We do have other assets, they're just not liquid right now.
That's those things that we call liabilities. We never had to touch those in years past either. So, I mean, let's not bring that up. Let's just stick with the deal where we're at. And there's a real financial time bomb going off, in I believe, in the future. And this is just the start. So, we voted on it, and it was a tie vote. I'd like the council... Chair would like to entertain a motion to do it one more time. Would you mind resubmitting your motion, please?
Did I make the motion?
I did. I would like to make a motion to authorize the setup of a tax anticipation line of credit note for $750,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept to allow a line of credit. My comment would be is, we live to fight another day, and this isn't the time to put people in a bind. Any questions?
My comment would be that we created this problem,
Yeah.
so we should fix it.
Well, that's what I meant, too, kind of like that way.
We have not had the tax bills go out. This was council doing, not his.
Oh, it's more, okay, no.
I mean, there would be money coming in right now had the bills gone out on the 1st of July like they usually do. Because the banks and mortgage companies usually pay right off, and we probably wouldn't have had to come.
I guess my point is to have a 30 days makes all the difference here. We should have more money than that in what we call a rainy day account, which was what we know we don't have anymore, and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's council's fault for not managing money properly. This 30 days isn't our fault.
No, but
This 30-day deal that happened here wasn't our fault. But that's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. We're at a, we're on a motion. Okay, all those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, Hugh. 8D, discussion possible action regarding MMA executive committee elections. Dennis.
Mayor and council, this is an annual activity of Maine Municipal Association, of which we are a member, of electing members to their executive board. The ballot that is in your packet is for your review. They had 4 positions open, and they only had 4 nominated individuals for those positions. And so it's being brought to you tonight to see if you want to go ahead and vote on the ballot, or authorize me to vote in your behalf, or what you want to do with it. It's nice to see that there are 2 members on this ballot who are from Aroostook County, and so definitely we support them. I've worked both with them quite a bit. Very good city managers, and would represent the county well.
So it's pretty clear and cut then. 3 people, and there's 3 positions. 1 person, and there's 1 position.
Right.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we support this slate to support our county officials.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the slate presented in our packets. Any other comments or questions? If not, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item number 9, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 07-01-2019, setting of the 2019 mill rate. Dennis.
At our last meeting, we had discussions about the mill rate and the impact that we were looking at from the county increase that they were requesting, as well as the RSU increase that they were requesting, and the direction that the council gave us was to try to go back and make it so that any mill rate increase was only sufficient to cover those 2 entities' changes. We went through the effort of the staff. We looked at the different options that we have from the operating budgets to wean some additional expenses. We also were able to get some more information about potential revenues coming in, which were positive, particularly the legislature. We do have a representative here tonight. John DeVoe is here, and I want to, I think, show appreciation to them for the change in the revenue sharing that was voted in this year. Caribou is looking at roughly $160,000 this year, or our this fiscal year of ourselves that will bring. So that was a big benefit. We've looked at, we received about $10,000 of additional funds from our cable franchise fee that we weren't anticipating, and that check's been received. We looked at, there's roughly $4,000 we're going to get more from the state for a URIP program, which helps with our roads. We have in the budget, or we have there $19,000 to help with property tax abatements. Being that we have acquired properties that still have taxes on the books that we need to abate at some point. The $19,000 we had would have taken care of a good chunk of that, particularly on the Bird's Eye property. But if we don't take care of all of that this year, we could save about $10,000 as proposed, that we not have that in the budget, which would save us some in the mill rate. The public works equipment that was anticipated this year came in roughly $39,000 less than we expected, and so we can carve that out of the capital equipment budget. We talked about reducing the $50,000 for the Homestead Senior Tax Credit Program, and also in talking with Jane about General Assistance Program, there's roughly $5,000 there of expense that we could probably take out of that program. There was some discussion of looking at the unfunded the compensated absences. We had earlier this month some funds in there that we thought we could carve off of this, but then we had a surprise announcement that one of our police officers is going to retire in September, and there will need to be some payout for that individual, and so we don't feel we can throw those funds into this pool of potential reduction. We need to have those funds to help offset those payouts. As far as trying to keep the mill rate down, we've applied right now $392,000 from 2017 that were unexpended funds, basically lapsed appropriations, however you want to call it. And so we've applied the full $392,000 from that year toward this. There's also currently the council authorized the use of $170,000 of one-time funds to help with the expenses in this year. That's primarily going toward some of the River Road costs. Also, $257,000 was allocated toward the streetlight conversion process. And so we know there was some discussion in the last meeting of just using more one-time funds to get the mill rate down where we needed it to again have only an increase to address the county and the RSU funds. There is still some concern, though, that as we look into the future with these funds, and particularly using one-time funds, that where we've tried to trim out as much as we can, are we comfortable from the staff side, from the operational side, continuing to just use one-time funds is not healthy for the future. It creates a dependency there on funds that we're not going to have so many years down the road. Granted, next year we will receive an additional $320,000 from the Aroostook Waste Solutions Company, and the year after that. So, in a sense, there's 2 years of additional one-time funds, but if we can start weaning ourselves from that now and making adjustments, both generating more revenue where we can and making cuts in expenses where we can, would be healthier for us long term. As we look at the mill rate, the recommendation that's in the resolution tonight is to definitely cover the cost of the county and the RSU, but also raise the mill rate from the city side a small amount so that we can cover some of the costs that we have, which might be due to the council authorized COLA increase for the staff. We also have union contracts from 3 years ago that created additional burden on us this year with wages that way. We have insurance costs that went up this year, a lot of other exterior influences on us that we try to anticipate in the budget, but as far as generating the funds to cover those outside influences, there's very little options of doing that. So again, the recommendation tonight is that the mill rate go up again for the county and the RSU coverage, and also go up slightly to cover some of the additional city costs that we have. And so the current mill rate is at 23.7, and the proposed mill rate is 24.8. The council, you obviously have an opportunity to weigh in on that if you'd like us to make additional changes to use of one-time funds or the mill rate or additional direction. We can change this document on the fly if you'd like, but definitely open for your discussion and input to us.
Any comments from the council?
Mayor.
Nate?
I'd like to talk about the senior homestead tax credit program. It appears that the philosophy of some of the council here is the county's going to send us a bill. The citizens voted for the school budget, and that's the .84 that they've been talking about. And I'd like to make the argument that the citizens have also approved this $50,000 and a lot more. The $5,000 that the legislature did, that's great. That's great because everybody gets it, but that's worth like $125 per taxpayer. With $50,000, we could give $250 extra dollars to 200 families, and I think there's a need. It was brought up for a vote, non-binding. It passed with a good majority. So to say we're only going to spend what the people want, then I think this is part of it, instead of being selective on that. When we put it out for a vote, we said it would cost approximately $500,000. This $50,000 is 1/7 of a mil. We're talking 14 cents per thousand to help some of the most vulnerable citizens. And I'd like to make a motion that we reinstate that $50,000 into the budget and raise the mill rate 0.14 to accommodate it.
Okay, so we'll take this, I guess, one item at a time. Mr. Martin's made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to reinstate this part into a new proposed mill rate calculation, I guess is how it would work. Any discussion? Comments? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion, need 4 votes to do it, so motion declines. Any other comments?
Mayor, on the end.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at numbers.
Well, I just want to bring up the fact that wasn't the consensus at our last meeting that we were going to keep the city end of it flat and use these one-time funds? Wasn't that the consensus in our meeting? We didn't take a vote. You weren't here. We didn't take a vote, but I thought that was the consensus of the council that we.
I don't recall that.
I think the direction was just bring it back flat.
Right.
And Jody kind of alluded to, well, where should it come from? And we all decided that's up to them to figure out.
Exactly, yeah. But I think the consensus was to leave it flat.
So there is an option here to leave it flat.
You have the floor.
The option to leave it flat uses a lot of one-time funds, and not a whole lot of, not very many adjustments. I would be more in favor of leaving it, not only leaving it flat, but having more adjustments versus one-time funds.
Yeah, I guess when you say not a lot of adjustments, it represents a swing of over $300,000 that we were able to make adjustments on. So
So if you go to the chart with the scenarios, I think you go back to 57.
okay,
Yeah, right there. So the 104,000 is really the only portion of the adjustments that I feel there could be more there versus one-time funds for all the reasons you mentioned. That's
yeah. In referring to this chart, maybe to walk you through this again a little bit more. I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this to the council is just to highlight, as Mayor Gahn mentioned, looking at the future and some potential financial issues we're going to run into. So this year in the budget, we were using, without any adjustments, 170,000 of one-time funds, and we had 120,000 in there of overlay. So that's kind of your buffer and ability to use that for abatements. If we adopted that mill rate based on that budget alone with no adjustments, we'd be looking at a 26.8 mill rate. So almost a 2.
plus 3.
Yeah, plus, right,
Plus 3.08.
plus 3,
Yeah.
right. With the budget, using the $392,000 of lapsed appropriations, that would allow us to get to that 25.7. So that's a full 2 mill rate increase there. Where we've been able to use the lapse of funds, make some adjustments in the expenses, gratefully going to see some more revenues coming in, and reduce the mill rate, or not the mill rate, the overlay, basically cutting that in half to roughly $60,000. That's what gets us to that 24.8 proposal tonight that we're bringing to you. To get it down to where it's a flat, the city's mill rate's not going to change at all. We're looking for roughly another $90,000. And that, again, one-time funds, or if the council says find it in operationally or additional revenues, we can try to go back and do that. But the concern is, again, we're not, for as far as looking at next year, we don't have $392,000 next year to help offset the mill rate. And so we're really looking at next year possibly a almost 2.5 mill rate increase without major sweeping changes in the budget. So one of the arguments for allowing a little bit of an increase this year on the city side is it lessens the blow next year, which could be drastic.
Next year, the homestead exemption kicks in, right?
Right?
It's not this year, it's next year.
Next year.
So that'll help on
Well, from
the
a
residential.
from a budget standpoint, it's even. The city would see a hit on the property tax, but we'd see an increase in the homestead reimbursement. So it's a neutral policy as far as the city budget's concerned.
But the taxpayer will see a lower rate.
The taxpayer will see a slightly lower property tax.
Boy. Any other questions? Well, I prepared my little written note. This goes to the crux of why I run for Caribou City Council, is the budget. The ever increase in taxation that my farm has to provide. I'll be voting against this mill rate proposal for the year 2019 as presented tonight. Anywhere's on there. This budget process follows the same theme that I have observed past councils use and follow over the last 12 plus years. The themes of our current physical problems are temporary, the theme that we can have it all, and the biggest theme, in my opinion, is it's all right if we cut someone else's program, but leave our program alone, are being well represented in this current budget process. We have ticking time bombs, as you say, a $3.25 million increase next year, if you do the guessing work. That's a ticking time bomb. And yet the myth that if we keep doing the same thing, the same way, things will be okay, is also present within this budget. We will not be okay. This budget is a representation of tax and spend philosophy of years past. Just tonight, the council voted for a $750,000 million line of credit to basically help pay the city bills. Basically, from a simple farmer's point of view, we are operating beyond our means. Our community has lost considerable valuation over the past year. Over the past 2 years, our community has lost major employers with loss of jobs, and yet we continue to ask our existing small business men and women to pay more and more in taxation. We as a community cannot spend our way into prosperity. This year's budget was based on last year's budget and the year before that and the year before that. Put simply, it's last year's budget with some across-the-board adjustments. All we have done is lock in yesterday's struggles, yesterday's structure by doing business which works against what I believe to be innovation and creativity, but it sure does lock in past inefficiencies. Two words you'll never find in the same sentence, those being government and creativity. And yet that is the challenge that faces this council and future councils if we hope to break the cycle of tax and spend. The ability to put creativity in the same sense of government has to be accomplished. I want to make this clear. The city of Caribou has creative employees. It's the system that the creativity gets lost in. But it's up to the council to change this current system. It won't be easy because if it was, it would have been done by now. But it can be done. I want to make a side note. One of the most discouraging statements I've heard over the past 2 years, well, it's that past manager's fault. That past manager didn't tell us what he was doing. And my favorite, that pellet boiler idea was nothing, and we were sold a bill of goods. Well, in my operation, Farmer Gloria and I are responsible for our farm. In local government, the council, those elected to represent the people, are ultimately responsible. We, this council, are responsible for this year's budget and the sustainability of our future financial needs. To use $260,000 of one-time money, I base this on the fact that we weren't going to raise the mill rate. So take this part. One-time money for operating expenses. My compromise was to allow the first $170,000. While one-time money is just that, one-time money, the expenses are going to have to be paid again next year. I took on the mayor's position because I wanted the opportunity to make some hard choices. No hard choices were made in this budget. I'll end this the city of Caribou, and this is my swan song, I'll go down on my gravestone with this one. The city of Caribou needs a new zero-based budgeting approach that constantly reevaluates the needs of our community. Programs need to be evaluated for their worth. We will be able to deliver better services for less cost to our community. But it has to start with those responsible, and I put the responsibility on the Caribou City Council. Thanks for your time. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? No, I just want to get this over with. Chair will entertain a motion.
I move that we set the mill rate at 0.02455.
Motion's made. Is there a second? Hearing none, motion fails. Anybody else got any other motions to make? Anybody got any ideas?
Oh, we have to do this tonight. I don't think we should put it off any longer. The next motion would be to go with Dennis's.
Tom?
This is my first year in council, and I've lived here all my life, grew up here. And over the past month, I've kind of looked at this just through my life in this town and watching, my family do business in this town. And my sentiments were with Mark on this deal. We got to start somewhere, and we got to start at home, because a lot of the farmers around here are paying a lot of money, taxes, land. We don't have the money, folks. We don't have it. We're up at 4 a.m., we work our butt off, and that's our lifestyle, and yeah, we all chose it. State's hitting us with taxes. Federal government's hitting us with taxes, and it hurts. Yeah, we can buy equipment to deduct and do this and do that. Still hurts. I can, if my father and I were talking about something like this, and if it was me having to do all this, he'd probably look at me and say, "You got one day. Fix it. Get it done." That's the real world. Business owners, bosses, will look at their employees and say, "This is the problem, fix it. This is what we pay you to do." This one-time fun stuff doesn't fly with me. It just doesn't. It's putting a Band-Aid where a huge stitch should be, and we got a huge wound, folks. 3 point, whatever it's going to be for next year. The money tree's gone. It's gone, and we need to look at it that way. And if you want, I've got my pesticide license, and I'll go spray it. And I can get some good stuff, because this is ridiculous. We need to look at this. That's why I ask for these financials. And I know, Dennis, you didn't get them to us until 5 today, but that's why I want to see it, so I can digest it and make an informed decision. A lot of people are hurting out there, guys. A lot of people are hurting. So I think we owe it to the people who voted us in, and the people who pay for the services in this town, to not raise the mill rate on our end. And I'm going to say this publicly. Shame on the school for coming in here and saying, "Well, we're only going to raise it half a mil." And then we get 0.8. Shame on them. County, there's nothing we can do, and I get it. I don't like it. I don't have to like it. It is what it is. But you know what? People are hurting, and we need, as a community and as this council, to do something to help them. Using one-time funds and waiting until the next year to say to everybody, "Oh, surprise!" It's not the way to do it. Not bad to have a little transparency for the people in this community. You look at businesses around here, help wanted signs everywhere. Everyone's hurting. Sitel's leaving. We've got to do something. Keeping it at an even keel and not raising the mill rate does that. And it gives people confidence that we're trying to do something in this community. We're trying to help out. Trying to give people a break for a year and not raise taxes. From our end. School and county, I wish we had control, but we don't. So, if it were me, we meet tomorrow night. Find something. Do something. That's all I ask. And that's my 2 cents.
Dennis, to use $170,000 of one-time money like was done at the beginning of the year, how much expenses, how much revenue would you have to raise? Forget where the revenue comes from. How much would you have to raise to keep the mill rate the same? On the city mill rate portion of it.
170,000? You're just talking about what kind of valuation would we have to generate that?
No,
Or-
what's the difference to keep the mill rate the same? What dollars are we talking here?
Right now, we're talking about $90,000.
Okay. And I guess I have if we have a $10.3 million budget and we can't figure out where to find $90,000. I mean, this is where it gets hard. But that's a big budget. And before I go any further, so we got this one-time money. It's $680,000 from Tri-Community Landfill. Now, Aroostook Waste Management. Was it 680?
640.
640. Let me do the gazuntas different then. We're going to use 170 of it.
Right. Which was
Which
for the
we-
River Road.
Yep. 7, 5. And we use 280,000 for the LEDs.
257,000.
I'll call
Carl,
it
you have it. 265.
260. That leaves 300.
213.
Pardon?
213 is the difference.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Or 648.
Where's the 213 in our budget in any of these scenarios? Where's that other $213,000? It's in the cash.
Reserves.
It's in reserves as cash. Cash? That how it goes in? Okay. Just wondering. There's money left over. You know, I think it would be great if we could
So
put we take the gift of the one time, and this was an investment that the Caribou citizens made 25, 30 years ago to create Tri-Community Landfill, and this thing grew. And that investment blossomed. And it's turned out to be a heck of a good deal for us. And now we've sold some of our interest to Prescal, and for a handsome sum of money. And we ought to be using that one-time money to invest in our future and to use it for operating money, which is just a one-time fix. I just don't see where that helps the investment that we made as a community 25, 30 years ago. I'd have no problem with the LED lights. And I like to put the 470 that's left, and I like to put it in an actual account in the reserve that says rainy day fund. Everybody talks about a rainy day fund, but I can never find it. And actually call it a rainy day fund. And find the $90,000 in creative expense budgeting. Because there's no more revenue coming in that I can see. Nope. And we got to work on revenue. I don't mean to get on a long-winded speech, but it amazes me to how we'll spend 5 months talking about an expense budget and we pass a revenue budget in 30 minutes. And it's the revenue that helps pay for all the expenses. Department heads will flood the expense side, but you never see them on the revenue side. And you would think they'd have just as much interest on how we're going to grow this community. And instead, we're losing valuation. Well, if there's no other motions on the table,
So if I might, it sounds like you've got the option of keeping the mill rate where it is, but directing staff, go find $90,000 to make sure that that's taken care of.
well, that was never an official motion, but
I'll make
That
it.
seems to be the sentiment that I'm hearing, other than using the
I'll make a
one-time funds.
motion.
well, then I guess Chair will entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to keep the mill rate, or put the mill rate at 0.02455 without using an additional $90,695 from the Aroostook Waste money.
No additional one-time funds.
90,000.
Does that mean
And that keeps the mill rate, that keeps it flat.
from the city side?
From the city side.
Well, yeah.
So that becomes one. Where's my?
In 2008, the school used 48% of our budget. The city used 47%
Of the mill rate.
of the mill rate. So we were about 50-50. The school was a little bit more than the city in 2008. Tonight's proposal, that third one down, the school's at 42%, a drop of 6%. The city is at 51.8%. We've gone up 4.5%, 5%. I haven't done the math, but you can see that the city has outpaced the school by quite a bit in how much it uses of our mill rate. Yes, the school gave us a little nasty bill this year, but they're still not too bad. It's just a trend that it's why I ran. Because I see it. And between last year, we ended up paying $300. This is a $700 bill for our farm. It doesn't seem like much to some people, but you know, it starts adding up over 20 years. So I can go on on the subject, but this is why I ran. Because you just got to try to stop it somehow. Okay, there's a motion made. Is there a second?
I don't know what you're looking for then.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to do Jones' motion.
I want to clarify that is .02455 using no additional one-time funds.
No, we didn't, we are using some, the additional 90,000.
No,
The 90,695, additional.
90,000,
So if you
695, oh, there, I see the number
put the
now.
chart back up. So that first column goes back down to 170, right? and then your expenses are gonna go to minus 195.
Right. We'll check both expenses and revenues again.
Yep. If you can make it up.
$90,000 is what
Yep, yep, yep.
And this holds the city end of it flat. I don't know what else you want, Tom. That's what you're asking for.
That's exactly what I want.
Well, there's gonna have to be some pain now, and it sounds like a lot of pain later. So why don't we go through a little bit of pain now?
My big deal is we need to count our pennies. And, don't walk by a penny, pick it up. Even if it's tails up. You know, that you create your own luck.
Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor? Those opposed? 5-1. Motion carries.
So that takes care of the mill rate portion of the resolution, if I might. We just want to make sure the council's okay with all the other points that are on the resolution as far as the commitment date, the due date, the interest rates that are on there. So point number 2 on the resolution says the date of commitment for the taxes will be July 24th. So that's Wednesday. That's, as I understand it, when the Board of Assessors is going to meet.
I can ask them to.
Okay.
I put them on notice.
Okay.
That hopefully.
That's possibly the earliest that we can get it committed.
Right.
Okay. Number 3, I wanted to, this was pointed out to me, we had it on number 3 that the due date would be the last day of September, which is, typically we start charging interest October 1st. And so we wrote in here that the due date would be the last day of September. The suggestion has been made both by the assessor and our clerk that we move the due date up to either the date of receipt or even suggested 2 weeks from tonight. Still not charging interest until October 1st, but when the bills go out, at least they would see a due date that's closer to today, so that there's a little more anxiousness to get the money start flowing in. And so we recommend that rather than having the due date be September, or the last business day of September, that we change that to due upon receipt.
It'd be well spelled out in big bold letters that interest isn't charged until September.
That's number 4. Interest.
okay.
Interest shall not begin accruing on any delinquent property taxes until October 1st, 2019.
But that's going to be in bold letters.
The tax bill actually says the last day to pay without interest is September 30th.
That's the bold letters.
That's the bold
It does
one.
say interest begins accruing in regular type.
Okay.
But last day to pay is in bold.
Okay.
But it says September 30th. That we changed that wording, or Penny changed that wording a few years ago, because I'm collecting downstairs, and the whole thing is, it starts October 1st, the interest, and it was confusing to people when they saw the interest started words there. They would come in and disagree with us. So September 30th is there, and it makes it much easier to point it out to people when they come in.
So
Collector person downstairs.
by moving the due date up, we're not penalizing them really until October 1st. We're just trying to create a little more anxiousness to get some funds coming in sooner.
Okay.
On number 5, the state law allows us to charge interest of up to 9% on delinquent taxes, and so we recommend that we follow the state's maximum interest rate on that. We also we have an interest rate of 0%. The state allows us to provide interest if people pay ahead of time. That's not historically been our practice. We usually set that at a 0%. And the last 2 items on there, the council approves the use of the lapsed appropriations of $392,000. And number 8 is our chart of changes that we'll have to make adjustments to that chart based on the motion that was made. And we can bring those back to you. So it'd be difficult to get those back to you tomorrow night, but we know we need to get $90,000, and we'll bring those back to you at least by your next meeting in August, so that you see the changes that we've made or would propose. That would complete the resolution.
So we need a motion to accept that slate right there.
Just to approve the resolution.
Approve the resolution. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to accept.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the resolution of the Caribou City Council establishing the 2019 mill rate and related financial terms
As adjusted
as adjusted
tonight.
Penny?
I need a date for number 3. Like, I have to have a date so I can put that in the bill. Like, on the bills, I have to have a date.
Okay.
And August 5th is 2 weeks.
2 weeks from today. So sometime it can't be before July 24th. But I still have to have a date because there's a place for a date for it to be due. So if it's going to be upon receipt, then you could do July 24th. But I just need a date.
Okay. What date would you like? Would you think would be a good date?
You're the boss. I'm the servant.
Can you give this boss a suggestion?
But after July 24th.
25th?
Here's the thing, when people, it's a psychology thing. So people get their bill, and it's antagonizing for them to get the bill after the due date. Because then people come in and say,
Oh, okay.
I got the bill after the, before, why
Okay.
are you sending this to me? People are not happy to get their bill in the first place. So why antagonize them by having it past due when they get it? That's the psychology of having it so that
So Penny,
if
when
I
is
work
the,
as fast as I can to get them out, it's landing to them before.
the soonest that you could get them out is when?
I'm hoping to get them out maybe middle of next week, so like the 31st.
So if we said August 5th,
Or August 1st, whatever
August 5th.
vote to vote, but I just need a date to put in there.
All right, Hugh, on your motion for August 5th as a date?
Sure.
And Joan, you seconded it? Was it you? Who?
on the resolution?
On the resolution?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy now to.
Any other questions, comments? June, or August 5th is the date. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Nine B, discussion possible action regarding the Floridale long-term lease agreement. Dennis.
The council discussed this in your last meeting. There was a question about if improvements were made and the city terminates the lease, would there be a provision that we could insert that the city would compensate them for the value of those improvements? In talking with legal counsel on that, there was some question of if you use devaluation or the deflation aspect of things, who's going to complain about, or what formula you're using and how you do that. His recommendation was that we just go off of assessed value of the improvements. And so a paragraph was inserted that if the city terminates the lease, then the city would reimburse the tenant the tax assessed value of any improvements that were installed with the city's permission. The lease agreement stipulates that any improvements have to be approved by the city. And so that was inserted into the agreement. At this point, we still need to go back and confirm with JF Liquidating Corporation that the entire agreement is satisfactory for them and talk with them about the terms. The recommendation for tonight is that the council authorize us to go forward and talk with the potential tenant, JF Liquidating Corporation, and finalize the terms of the lease. If there's any changes, those will be brought back to you, but hopefully we can just move forward with this.
Well, Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to authorize the city to enter in this agreement.
Second.
Moved and seconded to authorize the city manager to enter into the agreement, long-term lease agreement on Floridale Park. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Discussion and possible, 9C, discussion and possible action regarding loan service agreement with NMDC. Dennis.
This was also discussed at the last council meeting. This agreement would enable NMDC to administer the city's revolving loan funds. The council would still be the final approving body on any loans that go out, but they would handle all the administrative aspects of the applications and the reviews and bring the recommendations back to us. The council had a question about one provision near the end of the agreement that talks about a 1% administration origination fee, and some language was added to that paragraph. It currently says, collect from borrow a 1% origination fee based on the total proceeds loaned to the borrower to help cover the cost of document preparation and services provided. In talking with Bob Clark over there, he indicated that 1% origination fee is not actually one that NMDC collects and retains. They would charge that, and it would be given to the city to help with the administration of this contract. So in a roundabout way, it would end up going back to NMDC, but that 1% origination fee will actually come to the city with each loan.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to execute the agreement.
Moved and seconded to execute the service agreement with Northern Maine Development Commission. Any comments, questions, answers? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. 9D, discussion possible action regarding River Road construction project. Dennis.
Mayor and Council, since the packet went out, well, in the packet, there's a memo that gives us an update of where we're at on the project. Public Works has been busy tearing down 3 of the 4 homes that were out there, as well as some other structures. They've also basically cleared the properties of trees that would be in the way of any new road that gets constructed. A lot of the loam material from those properties has been pushed over or deposited over the bank where the scar exists, anticipating that will help just to reseed that area, provide some better vegetative cover there. I had a phone conference call with Dubois and King on Friday to talk about the issue of the borings and the status of the project with regards to their services and the contracts that we have with them. The city has contractual obligations of $178,902. To date, there's roughly $35,000 remaining to be spent from the city side toward them. The additional borings that were recommended, the estimate that they received back from their subcontractor was $38,000, which would basically get us 12 additional borings plus 2 downslope borings that would help monitor the groundwater situation down below, so we have a better understanding of what's happening there. Now, I talked with them at length about, do we really need all of those borings? Do we really need the rest of the scope of the project? And as far as Dubois and King's involvement in it, I asked them where they're at with the bid documents to put the project out. They said those were at 95% complete. And so those have already been basically paid for. If the city wants to, we could say to Juan King, provide us the bid documents, we'll put it out to bid, we'll do all the construction management, and be able to save some of those additional costs that would be in the contract. It really comes down to, at this point, the comfort level that we have in the design where the road is, and knowing the geologic data that we have. And they agreed with me that there really is a pendulum or a spectrum of options that we have right now moving forward with design and construction of the project. And so what I want to pass out to you tonight is, I'll give that to Jane. What you're looking at is, as I said, this spectrum of options to consider with regards to the road. And ultimately it comes down, like I said, to the comfort level that we have as a city with where we're at. The first option really is, do we take the designs as they are now and we just move forward with those designs with the knowledge that we have that it's expected that within 10 feet of the future asphalt surface, that slope's going to continue to fail. That's a little close for me, thinking that road's going to fail within 10 feet of where the future road's going to get built. And so I don't have a lot of confidence in utilizing the current design with the current geologic data that we have. The second option is, as we've looked at it, well, what if we move the road another 20 feet to the east? Or with the way Dave has it graded out there, we could move it all the way to the railroad tracks as long as we can get the curves on the road so that they're safe at the speed limits that we have there. If we move it another 20 feet from the current design, you'd still have 350-foot radius curves, and you still have we'd have to have the engineers confirm that they're still okay as far as the safety factor with those curves and the speeds, but it appears that we could make it work that way. Under that option, just to walk you through that, we're still relying upon the 4 borings that we have, trusting that the modeling that's been done so far is going to be the extent of the failure in the future. And we're also going to be looking at chewing into those properties that we acquired. And so we'll have less property to sell back or to offer back if we want to do that. But the value of that is very minimal. You're maybe looking at $1,500 of value of difference with the loss of the property. And so it's maybe $200 a year of taxes. Well, that's based on the current mill rate. I'll have to update that. But so as far as the loss of property from moving the road further to the east, there's really not that much of an impact to the city as far as the land value. The biggest loss that you would have is probably more in the buildable lot itself and somebody being able to buy it and put a home on it. Under this option of moving the road 20 feet, instead of having 3 lots that you could sell, you're left with only 2 lots that you could sell because of the zoning requirements. There would have to be additional survey costs done. The survey work that's been done so far is based on the current design. So shifting that 20 feet, we'd have some additional survey cost, but we wouldn't need any additional borings. And we could still go in this fall, cut the new road in roughly, place some gravel and asphalt. The idea being that we create this new temporary road that is going to sit there for 3 to 5 years. We monitor it. If we don't have any additional failure occurring around it, then that becomes the permanent alignment, and we may do some additional shoring up of that road in the future when we see that it might be warranted. The concern with that from the engineer's side of things is we did hire them, in a sense, for their stamp. We hired them to say, this project is going to meet all of the safety factors and all of the engineering standards, and if you build this way, their stamp is behind it. If we go with this option of just moving it 20 feet to the east, they would still do a design on it, but their stamp is really predicated upon them having confidence in the geologic data, which they're saying with only the 4 borings they have, they cannot give that high degree of confidence that just moving it 20 feet or 10 feet or whatever is going to be the long-term solution. And so they've indicated if the city wants their stamp with just moving it further to the east, then they would put caveats basically on their stamp. There'd have to be additional monitoring done, additional type of sturdying or reinforcement done after a period of time, something that basically says, okay, we can stand behind that, even though they don't have a high confidence in the geologic data that they've obtained. So the other option, the one on the far right, is the one that they're indicating would give them the highest degree of confidence in the geologic data, and thus the modeling and the future failure in the area, so that they can say with a high degree of certainty, this is, if you put the road here, we're confident it won't be disturbed in the future. And that's what they're saying is the 14 borings you have, that's that $38,000 tag that was mentioned. You'd still have, it's probably still going to move the road to the east, so we're still going to lose some of the property. But again, it's a very minimal cost compared to the total project. There's still going to be some survey work that needs to be updated. It really comes down to the timing and the confidence that we want to have in the final product. The indication is with the additional borings, really what they want to try to do is, if they did the additional borings on the uphill side this summer, they'd update all their plans. The key borings that they want to find are the 2 that are downslope, that are on the Chomka property, which she's said we could do. Those are the ones that would give us in the springtime a better idea of what's happening with the groundwater situation and which might be causing all of this to occur. If they are able to do their borings this summer, fall, and get those groundwater borings in the springtime, they're confident that they could still put it out to bid in the early spring next year. And so what the indication is, as far as a time delay, there wouldn't be very much, but you are looking at trying to get that confidence level in the stamp. And then, of course, you have somewhere in between. Do we just move the road 20 feet and say that's what we want to do and that's what we're going to pursue? Avoid the additional cost of the borings, but see what kind of stipulations they put on the stamp? Or do we do some additional borings to a degree to raise the level of confidence that they have, which may reduce the stipulations they would put on the stamp, but there would be some additional cost into the borings? It comes down again to what's the level of confidence that we have in the data we currently have. My recommendation, at a minimum, is really to protect the city would be the one on the far right.
One on the far right.
Which is the additional borings. The $38,000 would be, I think, well spent, so we know this is the extent of the failure in the future and what's going to happen. I still think, as far as the rest of the contract and the bidding services and the construction management, Dave and his crews are very competent. I think that they can handle that element. We can shave that off of the contract. But I think those additional borings would be in the city's best interest.
I remember we were looking at a sheet like this last year or sometime, and it was all about drainage. We had to take care of the drainage problem. is what I was told.
And
And we ourselves batted around that phrase. How are we going to handle the drainage? And we were starting to use that phrase. I don't see anything about drainage on here. And it's about a mountain moving.
And that's really what the borings would tell them is what are the conditions of the soils and the water that's underneath it. And it really comes back to the drainage and trying to understand what's going to happen there.
Were they going, I mean, you talk about confidence. I mean, I don't have much confidence from my end, but were they going to give us a stamp for what they designed? Which was wrong.
If it hadn't failed in the springtime, they would have stamped those plans and would have had it out to bid.
That was the condition?
If, like I
It
said,
hadn't failed this spring?
if everything had stayed the same, all the conditions had stayed the same, their design was, the intent was to be able to put that out to bid and construct that road. And then we had the additional failure that said, well, we need to take a step back and
But it's their responsibility. If they're going to give us a plan that works, what, I can't see us paying an extra $38,000. I mean, I think we should have Dave build a road and see what it looks like next year and the year after. And Dave will give you relief from liability. Okay, I know that's your big concern. We'll relieve you of that.
So I will make sure that you do that, Chris.
Get it right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I have something to say about this, right? First of all, I want to say, oh my God, if you haven't been out there to take a look, the work that Dave and his crew has done out there is phenomenal. Those 3 houses are gone, the trees are gone, it's all smoothed over. The only house that's left is the Jalbert house, and they've taken the asbestos out of there today. It is a whole different place out there now. And there's plenty of room. If you're coming or going, just watch the pole, make sure you don't hit that. But coming or going, you've got plenty of room to pull over. Cars are meeting. I am sorry, but I don't think any of these borings, if they do the borings and then they give us a stamp, what's that going to do? If the road wants to fail, it's going to fail anyway. And I don't think a stamp is going to matter one way or the other. But what the highway department did over there and that crew, I got to tell you, we are very, very lucky to have them. I cannot believe the transition. And I think if we just let them build a temporary road, take our time. If it takes 1, 2, 3 years, I don't think we have to rush to put it out to bid next year. I don't think that we have to hurry on that. I know that he's got some ideas about drainage towards where the railroad tracks used to be or whatever. I know that they've looked at the land going further in. It's more sand, I think, now than it is clay. And everybody's so happy with the way it is right now. I think you could just, okay, that's it. We're done for a while. But I know that you intend to do more. And they've taken the cement and stuff that they had, the material that they had, they've gone down the road and they've shorn up where the erosion was from the culvert down there. They've made that end of the road so much more safer as far as I'm concerned. But I cannot say enough good things about this highway department and what they've done. And I think we can take a step back and let Dave continue what he has for plans, and let's just wait and see. A year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it takes to make sure that there's no more road failure, which there may not be if we're moved over a little bit. I don't think that you should even consider selling the land. I think the city should keep that land for future use in case it does have to be moved over. But they've done a really, really, if you haven't gone and looked at it, go look at it. What a difference. So, kudos. Thank you very much.
I will pass it on to Mike Crew. Thank you.
Yes, they did an excellent job. I have one question on the bonding, or on the bidding. You said that that has to go out to referendum. That the bonding attorney said that it had. Is that because we have to get a bond for that? Because we're repairing infrastructure, we're not building new.
So we have our legal counsel, Rick Solomon. He is not a bond counsel. And to go out and get a bond or to get a loan for the construction of the road, we have to have the opinion of a bond counsel. And the bond counsel, upon reading the charter, his opinion was because it's over $500,000 as a project, it had to go to referendum.
But the charter says new.
But you're talking about legal opinions here as opposed to interpretation. And so the bond counsel's interpretation of it is that it,
What's to interpret
he's
says
the
new.
right, but he's the one that has to give the opinion of what needs to happen with it in order for us to get the bond. And
So
his
it-
opinion is that it has to go to referendum.
And we wouldn't be able to get the bond without the without the going to referendum.
Right. Our
We
city,
would stop it from going.
our legal counsel, Rick Solomon, he's of the opinion, and his interpretation of the charter is it would not have to go to referendum. But it's not his opinion that matters in this case, it's the bond counsel, and his opinion is it would have to go to referendum.
Okay.
If we had a rainy day fund with the money in it, we wouldn't need a bond, would we?
Depends on how much money's in the rainy day
Okay,
fund.
let's say there was enough money, whatever the cost is. That wouldn't have to go out to bid to spend that money. Wouldn't have to go out to a vote.
I guess that, it would be up to the council if you wanted to do that or not, because of the price tag.
Yep. Okay.
So, I mean, if you want to put Dave on it and say, Dave, just go, let's move that road 20 feet from the current design, we can go back to Dubois and Key and say that's the direction we want to go with the council and move forward that way. And
Were they looking for an answer tonight?
it doesn't have to be tonight if you want to chew on it some more.
I just assume we chew on it a little bit longer, but
Okay.
yes, give Dave.
Continue.
I'm not speaking on, this is just my opinion, but give Dave permission to continue. And I wouldn't limit it to 20 feet. As far away from that bank as you can get, do it.
He's
You know? Yeah, well, keep going. And,
So I guess really what we're saying is we can go back to Dubois and King and say we want to move that road, create the safe curves that we need to move that further to the east than the current design. Give us the alignment and no more additional borings,
No more additional money spent.
no more additional money beyond the contract that we have.
they don't, Dave doesn't need them to watch him build it.
No, I mean, they would probably come out and give us a center line staking as far as the construction of it, but
Okay.
Is it possible to just give permission to Dave to do what he has to do and just put Dubois and King on hold for now? Don't give him any direction right now? Just say, hey, just wait and we'll decide at a later date?
well, I would rather just give them the update, let them know this is what we're going,
Yeah.
so that they're not sitting on it. And every minute that they're sitting on it, it also costs us, so up to the maximum amount.
They can't just put it in an inactive file for a while? And
But if we tell them that, yes.
I would like to get as much information as we pay for in our possession.
oh, yeah, for,
Um,
if we don't have to pay any more or put out any.
Right,
Right.
but whatever they've got money, let's collect it.
Whatever we've paid for that we haven't gotten. yet.
Collect
Yeah.
it. And I don't know if this plan that they're putting together has any value to the Public Works Department. Must have some,
It's primarily the road alignment.
so, let's get that. And Dave can go from there with it. I mean, nobody builds the roads without a plan. So,
You're kind of asking us to.
well, huh?
You're kind of asking us to.
Sometimes
Well,
improvising
we've
works
paid
better.
for something here.
Right,
We've spent $150,000. We ought to get something,
yeah.
something in crayon, something. Okay. We're gonna chew on this one. Is that all right? For
Yeah,
another
the
one?
road's working good. I'm fine.
Okay.
So I know that Dave's crews are moving on to other projects, so you probably won't see any of their equipment out there.
It's gonna be a little while. We've got a lot of work to do before snow flies, so. Yeah.
So by your next meeting, you may not see much change, but
Okay.
I'll get back with Dubois and King and
Okay. City managers, number 10, city managers report.
in your packet. The text is a little bit larger this month. Obviously, High Street's moving forward. They are 2 weeks behind schedule, the last we heard. The indication is that the penalties that they will incur from being behind schedule are less than the cost of paying overtime. And so they'll continue operating as they have been, and we'll just wait for them to get done before our part of the project moves forward.
Who gets the penalty?
Trombley's would.
No. Penalty is financial, right?
Right.
Who gets the money?
DOT.
State. The state does.
Okay, could we recommend that the penalties go up? I mean,
They already have their contract in
I
place.
know that, but for future,
Right.
the next time we do one of these,
Yep.
You know, I've wondered about, I've wondered about that because weren't they held up from getting it started?
Yes. Weeks.
they already got an extra 2 weeks, I think.
Yes, they did.
Oh, they're over and above the time they lost?
So originally, they were supposed to be done by the middle of July. But because of the bonding and the miscommunication in the beginning, they got started 2 weeks. So the state let them go till the 29th, which gave them the 2 weeks on the other end. The number of work days are still the same regardless.
Okay,
It just changed a little further down the road.
okay. I didn't understand that part of it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. With regards to the bird's eye cleanup, the note is that Ken's been working with McGillen, and also we received notice that we were not awarded the EPA Brownfield grant funds. I wasn't sure if I'd conveyed that to the council, but that was $500,000 we were hoping for. We will make application again this year for those funds, meet with them, and see what we can do to improve our application. Also, we've been working with the CUD on disposal of the sludge that's on the property, and received a bid of roughly, was it 8 cents per gallon, Ken?
The calculations that were shared with us today were about 8 cents. And best case scenario would have been right around $9,900. But they're not exactly sure exactly how much material is in that bunker. So those are rough numbers. The real cost will come in the trucking.
So we estimate about $25,000 of additional cost just to get that sludge off the property and be able to get the remaining concrete pertaining to that building taken care of. The LED conversion, the update for that, again, since this memo went out, they've received all of the materials in, and we have a meeting, we're going back and forth on a meeting for next week, but they're looking at probably the first part of August before they start coming in and changing out the street lights for us that way. We need to still have some more discussion on the wages and classification policy. The council already took action on the senior homestead tax exemption policy, so we'll pull that one off based on what happened tonight. Union negotiations, we'll have some discussion later on tonight with that. No progress lately on the pellet boilers. We'll follow up with them. Floridale Park, we've already addressed that tonight. The Hilltop Senior Living Project is moving forward. We are going to need to relocate the playground equipment, and that will probably take place with the summer programs running down. We'll move over and get working on that. The intent there was to move the playground equipment to the south so that it's over by the ball fields rather than across the parking lot from the ball fields. And Teague Park and Sincock, you want to just touch on that right now, Gary? Is that okay, Mayor, if we jump down quickly to 12A?
Continue. Yes, it is.
I know you guys have seen a lot of activity going along the old learning center next to 55 Bennett Drive, next to the rec center. They are moving a lot of material right now. They know that they've got a close date of September 19th. The park has got to be open to the public by September 19th of this year. So there's still a lot of work to be done. They put the forms in today for the park, for the new park building. The concession stand is what they call it, but our park building, they put the forms in today. You'll start seeing some more work there. They've also started on the under drain in the ball field that was originally removed from the project as it was too costly, but the engineers have told them over and over that it has to be put back in because the ground is so wet. So that's 50 foot on center. The whole width of that softball field will have under drain in there, which is a wonderful thing because we do know how wet that property is. The vault for the electrical has been put in place so that they're also going to start receiving their telephone poles for the lights shortly. So you'll start seeing some poles being installed, which is all underground wiring as well, like what we had in the existing Teague Park or the older Teague Park. So progress is moving along. The ball field will be probably the only thing that will not be 100% complete this year by September 19th due to the fact that we got to grow grass. And that's going to be that might be a year to 2 years just to make that grass heal before we can use it. So Teague Park, they understand that September 19th is within a 2-month envelope now, and they're up against it, but they're moving right along. They've had great weather. So Clyde, who's the construction manager on the project for Bowman, he reminds them every day that September 19th is looming. Sincock site, which is going to be the new dog park for the community. We're planning on installing pipes tomorrow. We're going to do it in-house. We're going to utilize one of Dave's trucks with a pneumatic sign pounder, and we're going to start laying out the piping tomorrow and installing the fence pipe. So we've been gleaning fences, not stuff that's been standing up. It's all been stuff that's been laying around. But we've gleaned enough piping for the uprights and the vertical and the horizontals to do that whole entire park. And we've also gleaned probably about 550 feet worth of fence as well, which is still in good shape. So we've probably saved off the budget that I had received last year, $15,000 just to fence that park. We've probably saved ourselves close to $12,000. So we're doing our best on trying to be creative and working outside the envelope and helping out and trying to keep the cost down as much as we can. So hopefully within the next few weeks we'll have Sincock piece, the new dog park, done. That as well has an end date of September 19th because that was all part of this National Park Service conversion. And just to touch on what Manager Marker just mentioned about Hilltop with the playground, we have to move the playground. So the school department is going to move their new piece of playground that they installed 2 years ago. They understand that they've got to move that themselves, but the rest of it, we're going to move it, utilize our equipment, might borrow a backhoe. I have to ask Dave for the backhoe, but we'll have to use some of their equipment to do it because that's all set in concrete. But I think we need to keep that piece of playground up in that neck of the woods. I've been the advocate for that since this project's been started. We'd like to eventually purchase some new pieces as time goes down the road. We'll be budgeting for that. But for the time being, we will be putting what's there back up. Some of the spring animals are probably going to be retired, as they're not allowed if you remove them and replace them. They're not selling those style of spring animals anymore, and due to accidents. So we have a lot to do in the next few weeks. But I just wanted to give a quick update on Teague Park, how it's coming, and I've been in communications with them pretty much every day, checking in on them, and they are doing a great job. Any questions?
You mentioned Hilltop?
Yep.
School playground
Yep.
stuff? That has nothing to do with the park, though.
No, I can move that.
That's a separate.
That's a separate deal. But we got to get it off of the senior housing property back onto the city's piece. So we will be installing it about 150 feet. I calculated that a 12-year-old kid should not be able to hit a ball 300 feet. So I think 300 feet off of the right field fence, the white field should be far enough away for not having baseballs into the playground. Thank you.
As far as other items of update, we're still waiting on the Spectrum right now on the cable franchise review. We sent the draft agreement back to them for their review. 60 Access Highway, we did receive an official USDA response. They've accepted the appraisal and have sent a letter indicating the city's buyout amount. And a commercial broker's indicating that there are 4 interested parties waiting for the council's action on that. I would like to have some discussion on that during executive session later on in the agenda. Dunkin' Donuts has closed on the property on Bennett Drive, so we're hoping that they will be breaking ground in the next month. I don't know if, Ken, you've heard anything else from them on that?
Saw Brigham parked their excavator there yesterday. Late in the week, last week, we saw the surveyors over there, so they're getting ready. It's all marked out.
Okay. So, and then the Title 13 rewrite with the planning board, they're looking at the general plan, and if you haven't had a chance to look through the general plan, I think they would appreciate your comments. If you want to go through the individual sections, they're going through a process now of going through and looking at all the goals that were there. Are they still pertinent? Do we still want to have some of those goals? Have we achieved some we can take off the list? And so if you've got any ideas on the different elements of the general plan that you'd like to pass on, that would be good.
Tom?
Well, as liaison to the planning board, I was in this meeting of this comprehensive plan. I was a little miffed to find out that Cary Medical Center does have a section in here. They didn't write anything. And after we asked them a couple times, I guess what the story was, they still didn't come down and write anything in this plan. I'd like to ask Cary Medical Center if they would, they're part of the community, right? They're still municipality owned, right? Or we give them taxes, or, if they go over budget, city's gotta say, here you go. So they're part of this plan. So we need to have them in there. We also need some public engagement. Have people, the public, say, hey, maybe we should look at this for a goal. Maybe we should look at that for a goal. And we need to reach out to the different department heads and say, do your goals still pertain? I mean, it's been 5 years since we've done this, so we need to say, okay, this was a goal that we wanted back in 14, 15, and we didn't reach it, and it's unfathomable at this point. So what are our new goals? This is our go-to manual to say, okay, this is what we need to do, and this is what we need to keep doing, and this is the checks and balances right here. So I think we need to do that. And also in that meeting, it came up that to have the planning board go out to each individual person to do this probably isn't the best scenario. That we should say, hey guys, you need to look at this, get back to us. I'm kind of paraphrasing a little bit, Ken.
Sure.
Is that Is that
We
kind of
want to identify the stakeholders and get input from
Yeah.
each.
But my biggest thing is getting Cary Medical Center into this. What are their goals? What are they seeing? And get public input.
Last thing I just wanted to share, it wasn't in the written report, but we did receive word that the CDBG applications that we made on behalf of the Corvair and also Bill Flagg and his group, they were both awarded to the city in the full amounts requested. And so Corvair will be receiving $180,000 to help with purchasing of equipment and upgrades to their building. We've let them know that they have to wait. They can't start spending money right now. We have to get additional instructions and follow processes to meet the requirements of the CDBG program. And the other fund for the regional transportation program, is it $39,000?
316.
So we received that grant as well, and so we'll move forward with that program. So a couple of wins for the city on that. And that's all I have for the manager's report.
Do you have a timeline for the planning
For the comprehensive plan?
plan to be done?
Sometime this year. It's really only just begun. So we're going to be pushing it right to the end of the year.
Sometime this year's
Well,
It's
ideally-
something you've put on your committees put on themselves, or is it a requirement?
Ideally, and I don't think that the state is going to be down our neck if we don't do a 5-year update. But the rule of thumb was always, when you did a comprehensive plan, it was a 10-year plan. But at the 5th year, you reviewed your plan just to see if your goals still remain true, if you've accomplished some things and so forth. And we've even got organizations here in town. The downtown committee, for instance, didn't exist then. Well, that should absolutely be in our long-range plan.
Okay.
So those kinds of updates. Maybe we can review like history. Hope left. I was going to make a plug for maybe one of her. Because if you read the history in the comprehensive plan, what you find is it really sounds like someone from Massachusetts. And it's all true. I mean, it's all history, right? But, I'm thinking that it could be a little bit more Cuba-centric if maybe the library helps us with that. Okay.
Okay. Well, let's make that an agenda item then on the council level. And if there's nothing to discuss, then there's nothing to discuss. But if it keeps coming across our desk, well, I'll bet y'all have something to say, so I'll say it. But I got to start reading it first, to be honest with you all. So please place that on next month's agenda, Dennis.
Okay.
And entitle it Revision of the Long Range Plan, please.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for the city manager? Hearing none. Reports and discussion by mayor and council members. Any discussion, council members? We received a response from our honorary mayor, Mr. Beachkowski, and it made me laugh. So, pretty good feller. Reports of office, staff, boards, and committees. T Park reconstruction, we've kind of done that. Okay. Jane.
Yes.
Starting Friday, July 26, nomination papers are available for 2 openings on the city council, one for the RSU and one for Jefferson Carey. And we're looking for people who want to get involved in their community. We'll need 25 registered voters to sign nomination papers, and they're due sometime in September, and I'm not sure the date off the top of my head, but it will be an ad in this week's paper. And just wanted to make sure the word gets out about that. Another thing I'd like to point out that to everyone in the community, that a member of our office staff, Kaylin Hill, is receiving treatment for liver cancer. And we have raised money on Thursdays on Sweden Street. It was a joint effort for workers here at City Office, and it was very successful. If anyone wants to come in and buy a ribbon, because the green ribbons that we have are for supporting liver cancer, we have those available. And if they would just keep Kaylin Hill, the Deputy City Clerk, in their thoughts, send good wishes to her, and hope that she gets back to City Office as soon as possible. Thank you.
Send out a prayer. Okay. Any others? Any other deals want to bring up tonight, real quick, before we go into executive session? Dennis, also on next agenda item, could you put in a discussion on creating a rainy day fund? I'd be just curious to see if there's interest in the council to discuss it.
I would just note that Carl and I had a conversation about that already this afternoon, and planning to have that inserted into the next budget process.
Next budget process.
This coming budget process, right?
Okay. Okay.
But we can certainly put it on the agenda for more discussion.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. The legislature had a bill that said that the communities could pass out 2 separate tax bills, one for the city and one for the school. Do you know if that ever made it?
I will check on it.
I'd be just curious. If, and it is true, that we really don't, at this level, at the council level, the school's a separate identity, and that intrigued me when I saw that bill in front of the legislature, and I just assumed we could naturally do it anyways. But little bit, yes.
Isn't that broken down on the tax bill?
Already.
Yes.
It's actually, my husband isn't listening at home, but if he was, he would say, Penny Gale, go to the microphone. It's actually not a requirement that municipalities send out a tax bill. If they do choose to send out a tax bill, certain things are required, and that is one of the required elements to break down what it's for. We also have to include the rate of interest, our bonded indebtedness, and how much our tax bill is reduced already due to state aid to education, revenue sharing, Betty reimbursement, and homestead reimbursement. Just a fun fact.
Was this bill, like, all those entities would have to send it out separately?
I'm really not sure how it was going to be played out.
I'll check on it.
But it just intrigued me. I was just kind of curious.
We do, and starting, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, I actually started breaking down not only the percentages, which is required, but also what the mill rate is associated with that amount. I call that my Wolford Martin concession, because he is the one that brought it up in a meeting that he'd like to see that on the bill. So that's on there now, too. Any other questions? Just ask.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session, a personnel matter under 405.6.A.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to go into executive session on a personnel matter. Mr. Hill. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Motion passes. Thank